So I ripped this idea off Reddit to do a homebrew fantasy draft. Took it to the homebrew club, the Sensei Malt Infusers, who took it and ran with it. And today is brew day. I am doing mine, which base malt, any UK malt. Hop 1 is Sabro, Hop 2 is East Kent Golding, specialty malt, coffee malt, specialty 2 malt is biscuit malt. I have to use some coconut, an Irish or Scottish yeast, and it's got to be imperial. So right now I'm a little over halfway through a 2-hour boil of what started out as 27 pounds of grain. First runnings were a nice whopping 1100. Second runnings, which is about half of it, was 1060. So not going in as strong as I wanted to, but I'm boiling hard to try and hopefully get it down to like 5.5 gallons by the time the boil's done. Hopping with Sabro at 60 and 5. Putting in the East Kent Goldings at 15, 1 ounce of each addition. So it'll be a little hoppy, but not like, I'm hoping it comes out kind of like a Scottish but coconut ale. Going to throw in that coconut and sort of in secondary. I'm just going to add it into the fermenter, but I'm going to roast it, I guess that's the right term, and put it on vodka to make sure that there's no issues in terms of, any baddies getting in, and I want to get some of the oils off by roasting it. That's what I'm hoping anyway, because honestly, oil in secondary means no head retention. It's got to have some head. That's what she said. So, since I started out with 27 pounds of grain, I decided to party glyle this, and to the party glyle, so after the first and second runnings, added 6.5 gallons-ish, somewhere around there, of more strike water that ended at about 158. So I actually let it sit for 20 minutes to just get ready and maybe do a little bit of conversion. Added a pound of honey malt that I got from HomebrewCon, NHC. 8 ounces of blonde roast oats and 4 ounces of extra special malt. And I actually intended on tossing in some victory malt too, but I dropped the bag when I was getting ready to put all this through my mill, so it didn't make it in. It'll be okay. And then I held off a quart, just a quarter of a gallon of the first runnings to put into that second batch. And that should help improve head retention for the second batch, because you want some of those initial proteins. That's some of that first stuff that comes out of the mash. So I don't know what I'm hopping this second beer as. I'm definitely using pub yeast because I fucked up and I bought pub yeast thinking, oh, Imperial Pub should be able to handle this. Well, pub's actually English, not Scottish, or what the hell did I say, Scottish or Irish. They're close. I mean, Scotland, England, they're actually the same country. But I'm not sure pub can handle an 11+% ABV beer. So I'm going to use a couple packs in Nottingham, which I actually have to run out and get at some point. But I'm going to cool this work down, and my keys are after I cool it down with the counterflow chiller. So it should be nice and chilled. I don't want to stress the yeast out because this is one of those ones that it'll throw some fusels any yeast is going to throw some fusels if I just throw it in there. In fact, I'm probably going to grab like 3 or 4 packs of Nottingham, and Nottingham's a damn good yeast. It doesn't like being over about 80, but when you get it down into, it's down probably into the 60s, it should be pretty good. Somehow Nottingham is of Scottish descent. I can't figure that one out because Nottingham, if you look on a map, it's actually in the England part of the UK, not the Scotland part. But whatever, I don't make the rules, I don't make the heritage. But yeah, and I actually thought HomebrewCon would save me on this too. I picked up a couple packs of Mangrove Jack's M15, which is a Scottish style. According to their data sheet, it can only hit about 8%. So I think sometimes you can probably get an extra percent or so. I'm not going to get an extra 3 or 4%. That's just not going to happen. Also, there's a lot of stuff out on the internet that's saying that yeast does not attenuate very well and it's slow. And even though this has to be ready for the second week of September, I don't want to really push it. And I don't want to start messing around with yeast that decides to stall out. So anyway, I'm going to add to this video at some point with maybe a tasting of both of these, or maybe a little bit more about them. But until then, cheers. Alright, this is later on in the same day. It's been a few hours now. Batch 1, the coconut Scottish kind of thing, is in my keezer, getting chilled, waiting on me to run to a place where I can get some yeast. In the meantime, I've got the Party Glau boiling. It's going to be an English Ordinary Bitter. So if you look at the style guidelines, low ABV, we're talking like 3%. Going into the boil, it was 1028. So this is not going to light you up. Good session beer. I had to figure out hops, and I had to do a lot of this stuff manually, so I did some calculations and all that good stuff. Decided my final gravity should be somewhere around 1035, and according to style, I should be around 25 to 35 IBUs. So I looked at my hop boxes and what I've had around. The primary hop I'm using is Sonnet, which is that, and of course it won't focus because my camera hates me. Maybe. Well, here, we'll do this. Maybe it'll track it. Nope. I'm for the lights too. So anyway, Sonnet. It is an American hop, I think. Hold on. Yes, American hop from 2020. 5.4 alpha acid. So we're not talking a strong hop. I actually used all 2 ounces of it because it's not strong. According to the little cheat sheets they give us, they think it works best in English style beers and lagers, but it's so new, so tell us what you think. I will tell you what I think when I actually finish the beer, but I used, let's see, half an ounce at boil, or at 60, half an ounce at 15, an ounce at 5, and then I also, when I was at HomebrewCon, picked up some Vic Secret, which is an Australian hop, also from 2020, 21.5% alpha acids. This should be like woody aromatic, sweet fruit, and herbal. And that's really what I went for with both of them, because this, what is it? Sonnet, it's saying, where is it? Citrus and floral. So, and the cheat sheet said floral and herbal elements. So I was going for something that would go well with kind of that maltiness of an ordinary bitter. Anyway, since this stuff's rocket fuel, 21.5% alpha acids, I used 1/4 of an ounce at 10 minutes and 1/4 of an ounce at 5 minutes. So just a little bit, just to kind of give it a little touch, and we'll see what happens. This one's going to be fermented out with Imperial Pub yeast. Just before the thing, I said, oh, whoops, I bought Pub. Now I've got a way to use up one of the 2 packets that I bought. I'll have to do something else for the other packet. But I've got another grain bill setting aside. It'll be good. Cheers. All right, so this is the Party Glau brew. This is the lower ABV version, and if my camera decides to focus, which it should,
2,000 years later.
Well, that might work a little bit better. We'll see. No, of course not. Anyway, what I'm trying to show is how fugly this beer is. This has got to be the fuggliest beer I have ever seen. So I mentioned before, I added a few things. I'm calling it a British mild. It's not a great one. Aroma's actually not too bad. Little sweet impression, kind of light toffee and caramel. A little bit of coffee too in that. It's not an overly strong aroma, but it's not bad. It is cold. I just got this out of my keezer. Lots of coffee up front. I mean, like a fuck ton of coffee. Like, flavor-wise, this could almost pass for a stout. I mean, it's like that much roast in it. And it's almost like espresso roast kind of coffee. I mean, it's strong. Not a whole lot of other flavors. It might not actually be a British mild. I mean, maybe with a little bit of blacken this thing up, I could call it an Irish stout. An Irish dry stout, because it is pretty dry too. And it's got some bitterness. It's not bad. It's actually a pretty decent beer. But like I said, it is fugly. I mean, it's like chocolate milk with a head. Fine off-white head. So, that's that one. This is, I don't want to say it's still fermenting. It's pretty well done fermenting, I think. It's at about 1034, 1035-ish. Puts it almost 10% ABV. So I'm going to have to do something to juice up the ABV here, because it needs to be 11%. And I mean, I could probably let it lie, but I'm not going to. So, yeah. It's got a bit of an alcohol heat. Lots of caramel. A little bit of like toffee and that kind of nougaty kind of thing. Not getting much by way of hops. There's maybe a little bit of like a woodiness in it, but it's real subtle. I used Sabro hops. I was kind of expecting to get some coconut from that. I'm not getting any, but then again, I used it, I think, for mostly for the boil. I'd have to go back and double check the recipe, which I can do on my phone, come to think of it. Oh, I did use some Sabra at 10 minutes. So, yeah, it's not coming through, but I only used I used an ounce. An ounce at 10 minutes. It should come through in the flavor, but I don't know, maybe it's there and I'm just not recognizing it. Like I said, there's some like a woodiness. I also used an ounce of East Kent Goldings at 5 minutes. So I'm not getting much by way of, a whole lot of hop characteristics. But then again, this is a really malt forward beer. I mean, it's got some coffee malt, some biscuit malt in it. The mouthfeel's lovely. Really nice and thick mouthfeel. There is a little bit of an alcohol, almost a burn. I mean, you can definitely tell this is not your mama's beer. This is definitely a stronger beer. Although at 10%, it just seems like it seems stronger than what it really is. I mean, it just seems a little boozy. It's still in the fermenter. It's been in the fermenter for about a month, and it's probably going to stay there for most of another month because these aren't really due until September, second week of September. So it's got some time. I am going to put some coconut on it, or in it, to maybe juice up that. And I'm going to toast the coconut first. So I'll talk a little bit more about that when I add on to this video. So, cheers. Alright, so the last video, the one that just ended, was recorded in August, I believe August 10th. So kind of like early August. And I even mentioned like I've got nearly a month before these had to go into tasting. It's now October the 27th. So it's been a while. We had the judging at the Malt Infusers meeting. I actually won second of the People's Choice. So we did two different competitions for it, and we actually had a really nice plaque for the two winners. One of them was BJCP, and if you start following like everything I said about the recipe and everything, I didn't really fall into a style. I called it a Scottish or a wee heavy, which I mean really it was more of a fucking heavy, and I was really struggling with that because I took a glass of this, and I mean, here's the final product. I ended up adding like a kind of a malt syrup that I made with some brown sugar and malt extract, some dry malt extract, and that really kicked it up. It kicked it up to about 12.5%, give or take a couple tenths of a percent, but that's pretty close. It also lights you up. It's actually a really nice beer. So I won second, though, for the People's Choice. And given the other competitors were really good beers, too. So, I mean, that's a pretty big deal just because not only because I know everyone, but I got to taste all of the beers that everyone brewed. And it was really close, I think, with the judging. And, I mean, when I decided my top three, I was getting really kind of nitpicky. I mean, there was some stuff that's like, if I was drinking this beer casually, I would have zero issues. And here I am picking out some minor little fucking flaw that really didn't matter. And that was how close it was. Everyone made some really great beers. I scored really poorly on the BJCP side, I'm sure. They didn't really do score sheets. It was just a best of show style judging. So it wasn't like I got comments or anything. The judges are really well respected judges. I think they were both national level. One of them I've seen. I don't really know him that well, but I'm familiar with him, and I know he's super palate. So the other one I think was our BJCP class mentor, leader kind of person, and he's a great guy also, very good palate. So I have no complaints on that side. I do have a half pour. I've actually been drinking this a lot in like half pours. This just came out of my keezer, so I'm doing the whole use my hands to warm it up kind of thing, and you know, nice, very dark, fine off-white head. And I think I started down the path of saying before that before the competition meeting, I was really kind of struggling between Imperial Stout and Wee Heavy, because it's not much of a Wee Heavy. I gave a sample to my wife, and she was like, this tastes like a stout. And, you know, she's not a BJCP judge. She's not much of a beer person, but I think she was right. And I've started calling this basically a pastry stout or an Imperial Stout with coconut. In fact, locally, Listerman does a lot of pastry stouts. This would pass as one of theirs. I mean, no joke. I'm happy with it. It's nice. It's strong. It'll warm you up. Little bit of coffee-ish in the aroma. Lots of coconut. I mean, like coconut for days. And I keep like rousing it up. It was warmer when we did it at the meeting, which actually helped. But probably not much warmer really, because I think I used one of those double wall growlers that can keep liquids cold for like 2 years. A little bit of a woody hop aroma, which I think I mentioned. Even still, it's not as prominent as it used to be. Flavor-wise, coffee, caramel. It's definitely malty. Little bit of like a woodiness. Lots of coconut. I actually roasted the coconut. I took flaked coconut, roasted it in my oven, which was interesting. And then I started taking it and putting it on butcher paper to pull all those oils off, because, you know, roasting it will pull out the oils out of the coconut. And then I didn't want all that oil in the beer because it would affect the head, which fortunately we don't really have that problem. Fortunately. So this is a lovely beer. I'm enjoying this. It's in my keezer. Most of the time I drink only about this much of it. I'm making it last long, and usually it's like my second beer of the night. So like last night, Wednesday night, I had my IPA that I'm eventually going to do a video on. And I had like half a pour of this because, you know, it's a great way to end just a random Wednesday night. So, yeah. Cheers.